The stars were calm, deceptively calm, as the alien fleet hovered at the edge of the star system. Hundreds of ships, monoliths of metal and energy, hung in formation, their surfaces gleaming with the cold reflection of distant suns. Across the command decks, alien officers scrolled through readings, checking sensors, and communicating in rapid-fire clicks and hums. Reinforcements were due. Any second now, their numbers would double. And yet, there was a blip. A tiny, almost insignificant blip, drifting alone through the black. "Scans detect one human vessel," the junior officer squeaked, voice wavering. "It's small. Should we?" "Do nothing," the commander snapped, scales bristling with irritation. "It's alone, harmless. It will wait for its fleet." But the humans had never been predictable. The vessel was sleek, almost fragile against the backdrop of alien titans, yet it moved with uncanny precision. Its engines hummed a soft, controlled note, barely disturbing the void around it. There was no panic, no visible attempt to hide. Instead, the ship seemed confident, alive. It floated through the gaps between patrol drones, slipping past radar arcs that should have detected it. Every alien sensor blip seemed to hesitate, as though the universe itself had paused to question its presence. On board, the crew moved with quiet efficiency. Fingers flew over touch panels, eyes scanning streams of holographic data. Captain Mira Lorne leaned forward in her chair, observing the alien formation on the main display. Her calm, unshaken posture contrasted sharply with the chaos she could sense beyond the screens. "They're waiting," she murmured. "They expect reinforcements. They think their numbers will save them." The first officer, a wiry human with a streak of silver hair, smirked. "Then let's give them a little disappointment." Mira's eyes glimmered. "Patience," she said. "The right moment is always more effective than blind fire." Back in the alien command deck, the tension was subtle but growing. The officers shifted uneasily as the human blip continued to drift closer, almost tauntingly slow. Their sensors flickered inconsistently, unable to predict its trajectory. It was as if the ship had a mind of its own, slipping effortlessly between detection grids. "Perhaps we should engage now," another officer suggested. "Before it—" "Silence," the commander hissed, claws tapping the railing. "Do you think a single human can threaten us? Pathetic." The human ship glided closer to the edge of the fleet. Outside the viewport, vast alien warships formed a wall of lethal potential, cannons gleaming, energy shields pulsing. From this distance, it looked like a storm ready to crush anything foolish enough to challenge it. And yet, the single human vessel approached without hesitation, as though the storm was nothing more than a gentle wind. On the human bridge, Mira watched the alien fleet through the main viewport. Shadows of massive hulls stretched across the void, and yet there was no fear, only focus. The ship's sensors picked up faint signals, communications, energy surges, the subtle vibrations of alien nerves unraveling. "They've been waiting too long," Mira whispered. "That's their mistake." For the aliens, the tension was rising, unacknowledged but impossible to ignore. The blip on their scanners seemed to taunt them, refusing to conform to their predictions. Somewhere deep in the formation, minor errors began. Misaligned patrol patterns, hesitant turns, ships drifting slightly off course. Their confidence was cracking, and all of it was visible from a single human ship. Mira's hand hovered over the controls. No weapon was yet armed, no energy beam fired. She didn't need to act yet. The suspense was already doing its work. In the cold, silent expanse of space, one human vessel waited, and the galaxy's most formidable fleet began to tremble without even realizing why. The human ship had vanished. Not physically, it was still there, a glint of metal against the star-speckled void. But to the alien sensors, it was gone. One moment, it appeared on the far edge of the fleet. The next, it shimmered between two massive cruisers as if teleporting. A pulse of energy from the human vessel illuminated the surrounding darkness briefly, just enough to show the aliens how little they understood. "Impossible!" hissed one alien officer, claws gripping the console. "It cannot move like this!" The commander's gaze, sharp as fractured glass, swept across the radar display. Every blip of the human ship was erratic, unpredictable, defying every strategy the aliens had rehearsed. "It's one human," he growled. One vessel, and yet it haunts us like a shadow. On board the human ship, Captain Mira Lorne observed the chaos with a quiet smile. The crew's fingers danced over the control panels with rhythmic precision. Each maneuver was calculated, every movement a deliberate thread in a web designed to unravel the alien confidence. The ship arced gracefully around a patrol cruiser, dipping behind the shadow of a small moon. Its trajectory seemed effortless, fluid, almost playful, but every action was deadly accurate. "Shields are holding," reported the first officer. "They're adjusting. Slowly, not fast enough." Mira's eyes didn't leave the main viewport. "Let them watch," she said softly. "Let them think they're still in control. Fear has a way of revealing weakness." Outside, the alien fleet was no longer a monolithic wall of dominance. Ships twisted slightly off course, their formation fragmented as officers argued in sharp alien clicks and hisses. Confusion rippled through their ranks. One cruiser fired prematurely, energy beams missing the human vessel by mere meters. Another ship overcorrected, colliding lightly with its neighbor. Small mistakes, insignificant on their own, were now multiplying exponentially. "Captain there." "Panicking," the tactical officer murmured, almost in awe. Mira leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing. "Good. Let them panic. A fleet scattered by fear is more vulnerable than one destroyed by fire." A silent rhythm emerged aboard the human ship. Sensors monitored the enemy, plotting angles, reading energy surges, anticipating movements. Every drift, every feint was designed to tease and unsettle. The ship dipped behind another patrol cruiser, appearing again on the opposite side in a blink, an optical illusion that turned reality into terror for those watching. In alien command, the tension became palpable. Officers argued over targeting protocols. Some suggested calling reinforcements immediately. Others argued for restraint. The human presence, small, singular, almost insignificant, had shredded their cohesion. Their confidence in numbers, in overwhelming force, was unraveling like a frayed cable. "Open fire!" one officer barked, but their orders were inconsistent, contradicting each other as panic spread. Energy cannons flared, lighting the void in jagged bursts, yet the human ship was always just out of reach, always perfectly positioned to evade or observe. Mira's lips curved slightly. "Patience," she murmured again. "The storm will come to us, and when it does, we will decide where it breaks." The ship's shadow passed silently over an icy moon, its hull reflecting starlight in a way that made it almost invisible. To the aliens, it was no longer a vessel. They were chasing a phantom, an enigma they could not understand. Each mistake they made fed the humans' advantage, turning confidence into fear, strategy into chaos, and all the while, the human ship moved like a ghost, silent, precise, unyielding. It was only one vessel, but the entire alien fleet felt the weight of its presence, trembling before an enemy they hadn't even begun to comprehend. The void erupted, not with the clamor of overwhelming force, but with surgical precision. A single beam cut through the hull of a distant alien cruiser, igniting a chain reaction that turned its armor into molten streaks against the darkness. The explosion illuminated nearby ships like distant stars winking out in a heartbeat. For a fleet so massive, the destruction was minimal in scale, but the shockwave, visible even from kilometers away, spread panic faster than the blast itself. On the human bridge, Captain Mira Lorne watched the flickering display, unshaken. Her crew moved like a single organism, synchronized, silent, deadly. Fingers danced over controls, triggering sublight thrusters, targeting arrays, and electronic countermeasures. Every action was a calculation. Every second was choreographed chaos. "Target locked," the tactical officer said, voice steady but tense, engaging weak points. "Wait," Mira said. Her eyes scanned the fleet through augmented sensors, tracing the lines of energy pulses, shield harmonics, and engine signatures. "We strike only where it hurts most. Make it count." The first shot didn't kill. They had learned patience. Instead, it shattered auxiliary reactors, leaving alien officers scrambling to reroute power. Shields flickered. Communications stuttered. The humans weren't attacking blindly. They were dissecting their enemy, turning confidence into confusion before it could even solidify into retaliation. Outside, alien ships reeled. Plasma cannons flared sporadically, energy arcs snapping across the void as their targeting systems overcompensated for the phantom maneuvers of the human vessel. A single cruiser, attempting to flank, found itself isolated. Another ship collided lightly with a companion while evading an invisible strike. Errors multiplied. Chaos spread like wildfire. "Captain, they're breaking formation," the first officer reported. "They don't know where to focus." Mira leaned forward. "Good. Let them think the threat is everywhere. One human is enough to make a fleet see ghosts." The human ship glided between massive alien warships, its silhouette slicing across star-strewn voids like a predator threading through sleeping giants. Energy beams streaked past harmlessly, each narrowly missing, illuminating the humans' calculated arcs. They were not fast, just flawless. Not overwhelming, just precise. And in that precision lay terror. The alien commander bellowed orders in a cascade of harsh clicks and hisses, but coordination had become impossible. Ships fired independently, engines burned inefficiently, shields faltered at critical moments. The human strikes, timed perfectly, disabled key engines, weapons arrays, and reactor nodes. One by one, the alien ships began to list, stutter, or drift helplessly, their cohesion shattered before real destruction had even begun. Mira's hand hovered briefly over the final strike sequence. It was not yet necessary. The damage had already done its psychological work. The alien fleet, though vast, was reacting to shadows and echoes of the human ship rather than the ship itself. Fear had become a weapon, wielded without firing a single indiscriminate salvo. "Prepare to repeat," she said softly. "Let them think it's everywhere, not just one of us." Outside, the first cruisers began to falter. Their formations twisted into impossible angles, engines overcompensating. Panic spread among the alien officers like a virus, their confidence crumbling into hesitation and doubt. And through it all, the human ship moved calmly, almost leisurely, weaving between destruction like a dancer threading through a battlefield. In the cold silence of space, one human vessel had become an unstoppable force, not by brute strength, but by the terrifying precision of intelligence and patience. The aliens had expected a fleet to break them. Instead, one ship had begun to undo their entire strategy before it had even truly begun. The void was silent again, but not peaceful. Alien commanders hissed and snapped at their crews, clawed hands shaking over consoles. Sensors flickered with conflicting readings. The human ship appeared, disappeared, and reappeared in impossible locations. It was everywhere and nowhere at once, a ghost threading through the fleet with unnerving grace. Captain Mira Lorne didn't rush. She leaned back, eyes glinting in the dim light of the bridge. "They're nervous," she said softly. "Fear clouds judgment. Let's give them more." "More?" the first officer asked, eyebrows raised. "Yes," Mira said, voice low. "We don't need to destroy them yet. We need them to doubt themselves." On the alien command deck, confusion was reaching a fever pitch. Officers argued in shrill clicks, their language fractured with panic. Ships overshot their targets, beams fired into empty space, shields flickered unpredictably. The aliens had trained for countless battle scenarios, yet nothing in their simulations accounted for a single vessel moving with human unpredictability. Mira initiated the next phase. Tiny drones, no larger than her fist, ejected silently from her ship. Each one emitted low-level energy pulses that interfered with enemy sensors, creating phantom blips that mimicked the human ship's movements. For every real movement of the vessel, there were 3 illusions. The fleet's overwhelming confidence collapsed under a barrage of shadows and whispers. "Multiple targets," the aliens reported simultaneously, voices tight with panic. It's everywhere." Mira's lips curved. "Not everywhere. Just smart enough to make them think so." The first officer laughed softly. "Psychological warfare. Minimal casualties, maximum effect. They'll destroy themselves before we even fire another shot." Beyond the ship, the alien fleet twisted and buckled under imagined attacks. Cruisers veered off course to avoid phantom strikes. A destroyer dropped its shields mid-maneuver, thinking it had already taken a hit. Collisions were narrowly avoided, engines flaring in chaotic bursts. One officer even ordered retreat, then countermanded it moments later, paralyzed by the fear of the invisible threat. Mira watched, noting each subtle ripple of panic across the holographic displays. The alien fleet was no longer a monolith of precision and power. It was a twitching organism, vulnerable because its own mind had betrayed it. "Activate subspace decoys," Mira commanded. "Let's push the point home." From the human ship, tiny flashes appeared at random intervals, shimmering like stars momentarily before vanishing. Each decoy drew fire, energy beams slicing past harmlessly, further convincing the aliens that the human threat was infinite. The longer the fleet hunted phantoms, the more erratic their movements became. The alien commander bellowed orders, but hesitation had infected his officers. "Focus!" he roared, but the fleet's cohesion was gone. Every cruiser acted independently, each decision slower than instinct demanded. The humans weren't attacking. They were teaching fear, patience, and chaos. "Captain," the first officer whispered, "we've turned them into our puppets. They're chasing shadows." Mira's eyes glimmered. "Exactly. And shadows don't fight back, until you decide they should." In the darkness of space, the alien fleet flailed blindly, their confidence shattered, their numbers meaningless. The human ship glided effortlessly, unseen yet omnipresent. One vessel, one mind, one strategy. It was enough to control hundreds of ships without lifting a single weapon in anger. The first true advantage had been claimed. The aliens' minds were weakened, their decisions flawed, their panic spreading like a virus. The battle was far from over, but the psychological edge had already been won. The alien fleet was fraying. Their ships no longer moved as one. They hesitated, misfired, and collided, trapped in a web of their own fear. The humans had watched, waited, and manipulated. The time for subtlety was over. Captain Mira Lorne stood on the bridge, her gaze sharp, calculating. "Prepare the strike," she said. "We move from shadows to action. One precision strike can topple the first domino." The first officer nodded. "Targeting their lead cruiser, Captain. It's already overextended and isolated." "Good," Mira replied. "We hit hard, fast, and then vanish before they know what hit them." Outside, the human ship drifted silently in the void. Energy readings, projected as faint ghostly arcs across the enemy fleet, misled the aliens into thinking the vessel was everywhere at once. Then, with deadly precision, it moved, slipping between cruisers, threading the needle of space like a hunter stalking prey. The lead cruiser, the largest in the fleet, emitted a low hum of overworked engines. Its shields were faltering, stretched thin by constant defensive maneuvers against invisible threats. Mira's fingers hovered over the strike controls, each movement deliberate. "Now," she commanded. A beam of focused energy lanced from the human ship, cutting through shields and hull plating with surgical accuracy. The cruiser shuddered violently, its superstructure cracking, engines flaring in desperate countermeasures. Alarms screamed across the fleet, a cacophony of panic and disbelief. "Direct hit. Cruiser destabilized," reported the tactical officer. "Shields failing in multiple sectors." Mira's lips curled slightly. "Good. One down. Hundreds to watch crumble." The alien fleet erupted in chaos, energy weapons fired indiscriminately, beams tearing through empty space as crews scrambled to react. A nearby destroyer, trying to flank the human ship, collided lightly with its companion, sparks flying. Communications were chaotic, officers shouted conflicting orders. Fear had become a tangible weapon, and now it was coupled with real destruction. "Enemy formation collapsing," the first officer said, voice tight with awe. "They're panicking completely." Mira allowed herself a brief nod. "Let's push them further. Every strike counts. Make them question reality itself." The human ship twisted through the battlefield, disappearing behind debris and moon shadows. Each movement was calculated to mislead, to sow doubt, to make the aliens believe the ship was in multiple places at once, and each strike hit with pinpoint accuracy. An energy conduit disabled here, a shield generator melted there, engines destabilized across the fleet. The lead cruiser broke apart, its pieces tumbling through space like shattered stars. Nearby ships fired blindly, energy arcs slicing through empty void as if attacking ghosts. The aliens' largest vessels, once symbols of their overwhelming dominance, were now helpless, their crews paralyzed by fear and confusion. "Captain," the first officer murmured, "their flagship is gone. They're leaderless. Perfect, Mira said. Now we control their minds and their fleet simultaneously. One ship, one human strategy, is enough to dictate the battlefield. The void grew eerily silent once more. The human ship floated between shattered wreckage and flickering energy trails, almost serene amidst destruction. The aliens had expected a fleet, a barrage, overwhelming firepower. Instead, they were facing one human ship that could strike anywhere, vanish anywhere, and crush precisely where it counted. The alien fleet floated like wounded predators in the void, disoriented and fractured, their flagship destroyed, formations broken, officers paralyzed by fear. They had lost the battle before they realized it had begun. Captain Mira Lorne didn't celebrate. She knew better than to assume the fight was over. Instead, she watched, silent and meticulous, letting the chaos work in her favor. Every misstep the aliens made, every frantic maneuver, added to her advantage. "Status report," she said calmly. "Tactical advantage, total. Shields and engines compromised across 40% of their fleet," the first officer replied. "Enemy coordination is collapsing. They don't know where to fire, or even if they should fire." Mira's eyes scanned the holographic displays. Her ship was one among thousands in appearance only. In reality, it had moved so fluidly, invisibly, that the aliens were reacting to phantom attacks, chasing shadows and ignoring the real danger. "Prepare Phase 2, she ordered. "It's time they understand that numbers mean nothing." The human ship slipped between the massive cruisers like a phantom, emitting short, controlled energy pulses that made alien sensors scream false readings. Every time the aliens tried to fire, they struck nothing. Or worse, struck their own allies. Panic became their weapon, but now it would become their undoing. On the alien command bridge, officers screamed at flickering displays. "It's everywhere. Where is it?" The commander's voice cracked under pressure, his mind struggling to process a single ship outmaneuvering an entire fleet. "Target it. Fire. Anywhere." But it was too late. Mira's ship initiated a series of rapid maneuvers, striking the exposed flanks of cruisers and destroyers with surgical precision. Engines overloaded, weapons systems fried, shields collapsed. One by one, alien vessels listed and drifted, unable to regroup. The void became a graveyard of silent hulks, starry trails marking the chaos left behind. "Captain, their morale is at 0, the first officer said, awe in his voice. "They're fleeing or surrendering." Mira nodded. "Good. But we finished the lesson. Let them remember what it means to face a human." The ship executed a breathtaking maneuver, appearing simultaneously in multiple sectors thanks to advanced holographic decoys and subspace interference. Each attack forced the aliens to divide focus, misfire, and self-destruct. Entire squadrons collided mid-maneuver, engines flaring in sparks and shrapnel. The illusion of infinite human presence became undeniable. They weren't just fighting a ship, they were fighting omnipotence. "Begin the final strike," Mira said. "Target remaining cruisers that are still operational. Make it surgical." Energy beams cut through alien vessels, precise and unstoppable. Explosions erupted in perfect sequence, leaving no room for panic to stabilize into organized retaliation. Every strike reinforced the illusion that the human ship was everywhere, untouchable and omniscient. As debris drifted across the void, the surviving alien ships trembled, listing in confusion. Their confidence was gone, their fleet scattered and leaderless. One human ship had turned fear into a weapon more powerful than any fleet or weapon system. Mira's voice was calm, almost serene. One human ship, one strategy, one mind. Enough to break them. The alien fleet was broken, but desperation simmered in the remnants. Small groups of cruisers had regrouped, battered but unwilling to surrender. Their commander, pride shattered, hissed orders through cracked vocal modulators, demanding a last, all-or-nothing assault. "They think they can scare us with one ship," the commander growled, claws slamming on the console. "We will strike together, overwhelm it, or die trying." But the void was no longer theirs. Fear had transformed the fleet into a hive of doubt and hesitation. Ships jittered erratically, guns fired too early or too late, and engines flared without coordination. Their minds were already prey. Captain Mira Lorne watched the readings with cold precision. "They're desperate," she said. "Good. Desperation is predictable. Her first officer adjusted the targeting array. They're consolidating, multiple cruisers forming an attack vector. If they hit, it could be catastrophic. Mira smiled faintly. Then we make sure they never hit anything. Outside, the human ship danced between the enemy vessels, a phantom threading through a storm of alien fire. Every movement was calculated to provoke panic, to make them strike each other, to magnify the chaos already consuming them. The aliens launched their coordinated strike. Energy beams lanced across the void, converging on the last known position of the human ship. But the ship wasn't there. It had vanished moments before, reappearing behind the formation to target engines and weapon arrays with precise, surgical strikes. One cruiser's engines overloaded, flinging it uncontrollably into its companion. Sparks and hull fragments drifted like deadly shooting stars. Another fired blindly, hitting a destroyer instead of the phantom they chased. Panic erupted in real time, and the fleet's attack vector dissolved into disorder. "Captain, their attack is failing," the first officer said. "They're destroying each other." "Exactly," Mira replied. "Fear guides them now. Let's finish the lesson." With a calculated burst of acceleration, the human ship weaved through the battlefield. Decoys flared, creating the illusion of multiple ships converging from every angle. Alien cruisers flailed, colliding, overloading, and imploding in cascading destruction. One by one, their offensive capabilities were neutralized, not by force alone, but by psychological precision. The alien commander roared, fury and disbelief echoing through the remains of the fleet. "Impossible! One ship! One ship! How can this be?" Mira's voice, calm and controlled, cut through the chaos over comms, just loud enough to reach the enemy sensors. "It's human ingenuity. One mind, one strategy, one ship, enough to break you." The final remnants of the fleet attempted a retreat, but confusion and self-inflicted damage slowed them to crawling. Energy beams misfired, engines faltered, and their coordination was non-existent. The human ship glided through the battlefield like a predator among wounded prey, each maneuver reinforcing dominance. The void grew quiet as the last functioning alien vessel fled. Scattered debris glimmered against the starlight, a haunting testament to their overconfidence and the brilliance of a single human strategist. The human ship had survived unscathed, not because of superior numbers or firepower, but because it had understood the ultimate weapon: fear, precision, and cunning. Mira exhaled slowly, her gaze steady on the battlefield. "One ship," she whispered. "One human ship. Enough to win." The void was silent, save for the soft hum of the human ship's engines and the faint glow of distant stars reflected on fractured alien hulls. The battle was over. The alien fleet lay in ruin, scattered debris drifting like tombstones across the dark canvas of space. Captain Mira Lorne stood on the bridge, arms folded, eyes scanning the wreckage. The cost had been minimal for her crew. One human ship had undone an entire armada. It wasn't firepower alone that had won. It was precision, strategy, and the calculated use of fear as a weapon. Her first officer approached cautiously. "Captain, the survivors are retreating. Their fleet is shattered. There's no chance of regrouping." Mira nodded. "Good. Let them carry the memory of this defeat. Let it haunt them." She paused, letting the silence of the battlefield sink in. One human ship, one strategy, one mind. Enough to remind them why they underestimated us. Outside, the surviving alien ships limped away, engines sputtering, sensors scarred, crew morale shattered. Across comms, there were fragments of stunned transmissions, frantic whispers that spoke of an enemy they could not comprehend. A single ship that had been everywhere at once, untouchable, omnipotent in its precision. "Prepare the report for command," Mira said, "and send a message to the survivors." The comms officer raised an eyebrow. "A message, Captain?" "Yes. One that they will never forget," Mira replied. "Tell them this. Earth is defended not just by weapons, but by will, by intelligence, and by courage. Tell them to remember who they faced, and why they must never return." A transmission flared through space, clear and cold. "Let this stand as warning. One human ship was enough. Do not test us again." The alien commander, retreating with his shattered fleet, received the message. His systems vibrated with disbelief and fear. The humans were not merely a species. They were a force of nature, a mind capable of bending the impossible to its will. His fleet, once confident, now knew the price of arrogance. Mira turned to her crew, her eyes softening for the first time in hours. "Well done," she said quietly. "We've proven what we always knew. Courage, intellect, and unity. These are our greatest weapons." The first officer smiled, relief and awe mingling. "They'll remember this. They'll never underestimate humans again." Mira allowed herself a small nod. "Let them remember, let them fear, and let them know. We wait, always ready. Not for numbers, not for strength alone, but for the right time, the right strategy, and the resolve to act when it matters most." As the human ship slipped back into the calm of deep space, the shattered remnants of the alien armada trailed behind, a ghostly reminder of what could happen when arrogance meets strategy. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, silent witnesses to a battle that would be told for generations.